Welcome to Unbreakably Bold. I'm your host, Christina Delgado. This podcast is for anyone who is ready to step into their power, stop doubting their abilities, and begin to live their life in alignment. On this podcast, we will talk all things mindset, relationships, personal development, confidence, and so much more. I'm here to foster intentional conversations, drop some knowledge, and learn alongside you all with the aim of showing up as empowered and unbreakably bold every single day. No matter where you are on your journey of doing the work, this podcast is guaranteed to make you feel less alone. Let's get into it, shall we? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Unbreakably Bold. It's your host, Christina Delgado. I am so excited to be doing this episode today. I have a very special friend with me. Her name is Delarue Brumskine. Della, say hi.
Hi.
I'm going to let her tell you all the things that she does because I don't want to butcher anything. So turning the floor over to you.
All right, so my name is Delarue Brumskine, and I'm actually a licensed therapist and a coach. I like to call myself a joy engineer. So I think it's easier for you to understand what I do if you think of how engineers help people construct buildings. I help you construct your joy.
Love that.
So wherever you are, what I want to know is where do you want to go? And together we'll create a plan, come up with some activities, come up with some insights, and help you kind of get there. I'm a licensed therapist, but I'm like a new age therapist in the sense that I don't necessarily want you to sit on the couch, put your foot up, and tell me all of your trauma, you know. We basically are going to deep dive where you want to, and we'll stay up on the surface where you feel comfortable. But I focus a lot on teaching coping skills and self-soothing so that when you're ready to take the deep dive, you're equipped to kind of go there, come back out, take care of yourself, repackage yourself, put yourself back together, and go into the world and do your thing.
Yes, I love that.
That's one of the reasons why a lot of people actually shun therapy, because they feel ill-prepared to do the deep dive, and when they come out, they're like, I don't want to be stuck dealing with all that, trauma in my head. And a good therapist should ensure that you have the requisite skills before doing the deep dive. So
that's perfect. You said joy engineer?
Yes.
I love that. I'm writing that down. That's fun.
Yes.
So Della and I we live in the same apartment building.
Yes.
And let me just tell the story about how we met because, everything was aligning. We're both into like the signs, God in the universe. So I have to tell the story. So I was going through a weird transitional phase just in my life and with a certain friendship. And I had planned on just cutting that friend off. If you know me, I can just sometimes be a little ruthless. So I had all the intention, to have a big conversation with the friend the next day and cut off the friendship. I felt like it wasn't serving me anymore. It just wasn't working. So before I did that, I felt very uncomfortable the night before. And something just didn't feel right. So I was like crying, journaling. I was like trying to figure it out. And I was like, God in the universe, the amount of times they probably hear me say a story like this, God in the universe, if I'm not supposed to cut her off like this, like give me a sign, help me understand what to do next. So that was a Thursday night. And then it was a Friday. And I usually work out in the mornings or or after work. But for some reason this time I decided to go at lunch because I slept in because I was so tired from crying the night before. And
that's when I like to work out, in the afternoon.
Yeah. So it was the first time I ever went to our gym at like noon. I walk in, there's Della, and she was working out, I was working out, we were doing our thing, and then we ended up just chatting, talking about workouts, and then I don't even know how the conversation happened. Do you remember?
I think I was talking to you about possibly getting together a group of younger women who would be into wellness and mental health and things like that.
Yeah.
To kind of do like a group discussion kind of thing and see if they were into it.
Yeah.
And you that's pretty cool. And I know I also asked you about like the ropes, the bicep pull.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to figure out how to use it properly. And I saw you using it.
Yeah.
I was like, let me ask her if I'm doing this right. So that's where we kind of got the conversation started. Yeah.
So then I don't know how it happened, but I ended up I guess because she's a therapist, I was like, let me tell you all of the things happening in my life. And she gave me she was dropping gems, y'all. Like, she gave me phenomenal advice, and it felt so right as she said it, and I was just shook with the advice and the knowledge that you gave me, and it helped me feel confident in what I was going to do next with that friend, and I did it with confidence, and I felt strong about it and so good about it, and that is exactly why you're here, because I need you to share this knowledge for everyone else. Like, I have talked to people about this, and I'm like, I sound ridiculous talking about it. Like, she kills it. So the reason I think it's so important, and I really want to talk about today's subject of the evolution of friendships, is because, you know, this podcast is all about healing and personal development and becoming your best self, stepping into your power, and just aligning with your purpose and just living in the best way authentically. And with those transitional phases comes the loss of some friendships. It comes with having to move some things around and just reconsider who's supposed to be in your life versus not. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I feel like we should start off by understanding, when do you know it's the right time to maybe let a friend go, or that something's off?
Well, I think that we all have our intuition. Your intuition is your GPS.
Right.
It's Ian Van Sant calls it your God-provided system.
Mm-hmm.
It's there to tell you, turn left, turn right, keep going straight, you're doing great. Right? And I think that the more that you turn inward, and the more you turn inward to listen, you get clarity about what direction to go in. Because the thing about it is, life is not prescriptive.
Right.
And each person has a unique path to walk. We come here to do different things. We come here equipped with different gifts and skills and, different assignments. So how can I tell you what to do? How can you look at my life and try to replicate it when you have different skills, different talents, different assignment on your life, right?
Right.
And so I think that if we just practice, and I always ask my clients, try for 30 days, just only listen to you and see if your life does not feel better to you. Mm-hmm. If it's something as simple as eating an apple or a banana, like, ask yourself, what do I feel like eating? Like, so many of us are so disconnected from ourselves that we don't even know what we want anymore. But yourself is so well equipped to guide you. And so I think that's how you know. When you don't feel good, your emotions are your communication system. So it's like your intuition is the tower giving out instructions, and your emotions are the transmitted data. When you see someone coming and your stomach turns, you get that awkward feeling. That's some information that you're getting, that this particular person may require additional looking at, or there's something about that person just doesn't sit well with you, and it's totally okay for you to examine that, regardless of whether you have concrete evidence to have an issue with the person or not. You have all right to evaluate every piece of data that you collect. The human mind is so sophisticated. It's collecting information subconsciously that you're not even really aware of. And so for you to just dismiss your feelings as just being neurotic or excessive, it's a little bit of a kind of like what do the kids say? It's like a jab to yourself.
Right.
It's like you're throwing yourself some shade.
You're disrespecting yourself.
I collect all this information all the time. I'm synthesizing it and telling your homie there's something wrong with that person, and you're like, you're just being too extra, and you're being no. So because your brain is really sophisticated. So I'm not saying take decision based on that, but definitely pay attention to it. Seek additional information within yourself. Like, is there any evidence, in the interaction with this person that would cause me to feel unsafe or not happy, or whatever. Like, look into it. So I think that's the way to kind of look at it. Like, use your internal guiding system, and sometimes you don't need to have a concrete reason to make a change. Not one that you can consciously understand. It might be a subconscious misalignment that'll come to you later on. It'll reveal itself later on. Right. And so that's why, the conversation we're having is very important, the repositioning. Yeah. Right.
So let's talk about repositioning, because I always thought, like, if someone's no longer, like, serving you in your life, if you're not getting value, snip. I will grab the scissors, and I'm happy to snip. So that's how I came at her in the gym. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to cut her off. So please blow our minds with repositioning.
So the idea, what you're saying is really not unusual if you think about our environment that we're in and the messaging we get. And there's something called pruning, like in nature, where if you have a plant and some of the leaves are dying off, you generally cut those pieces off so that the flower will grow bigger, or even the flower itself, you cut off the withering pieces so that it'll grow bigger. And so there is a time and a place for pruning. However, in a friendship, pruning may not be necessary or possible. So, for example, here are some times when pruning is really necessary. If you're in a situation where someone is abusive to you, whether it's psychologically, emotionally, financially, physically, any of the other types of abuse, that requires pruning, because self-preservation is the name of the game.
Right.
You have to live to tell the story. So if someone's trying to destroy you, you need to cut. Okay, so that's generally the rule. And these are things that I made up out of my own life experiences and out of my own studying and working with clients. There's no one way to go, and I think we started with that principle, right? Everybody has their own journey to walk, but these are things that I've seen work for myself and for my clients. The other piece of it is, so there are certain categories of people that we do need to prune so that we can continue to evolve and grow. But there's another category of people, like our friends and family members, that we need to reposition. So the idea of repositioning comes out of a paradigm that I developed called You Incorporated. So You Incorporated is a concept that allows you to look at yourself and your life as a business, a conglomerate, a huge corporation, and you're the CEO of this corporation. So Christina Inc. Christina Inc. has a CEO, it needs a CFO, it also needs a board of directors, those will be your friends, and it needs some worker bees to help you do some of the work, and it also needs an ethics board that will kind of check you every now and then to make sure we're aligning with it has core values. Christina Inc. has a mission and a vision in life, right? And we're wanting to always make decisions based on our values. And you'll find that if you do this actual assessment, you can build a whole business based on you, and your business will feel so good to you.
Okay.
Right? So the idea is the board of directors are your friends because they're always in your ear. And they have a lot of influence, whether you realize it or not, on what you do and what you say and how you act and what you think. You really are the sum total of the people that you talk to the most, right? And so with these advisors in your ears, you have to be careful. Sometimes they may have expertise in the things that they're giving, and sometimes not. And so the idea is, depending on what's on the table, friend A may not be so good for that particular piece, but friend A might be useful for something else. And so because of that, and because what we put out comes in, when we put out the energy of cutting, we stop good things from coming back to us. But if we take on this idea of repositioning people, so let's just say we have a friend named Angelica.
Okay.
All right. Angelica has been a good friend. We've been friends for 15 years. This actually happened to me. So, we go through different life transitions. I get married, I have a child. Perhaps Angelica is not married, does not have a child. So her expertise is not going to be able to speak to the current issues that I'm dealing with.
Right.
There'll be a lot of misalignment there, misunderstanding, because I'm explaining things that she's never been through, doesn't understand. And even if she's talking to me about it, I'll just feel like you're guessing. Even if she really does know what she's talking about, it's going to feel like you're guessing, because I'm like, you're not really going through it. So how do you really know? You're talking about your sister, your mom, and I need someone to speak to my soul right now, because this is a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And so, as opposed to calling my friend and saying to her, I just don't think this friendship is working out. Like right now, like you're doing the most. Like I'm not feeling you. My thought is, let's reposition the friendship. Like this particular member of the board, she needs us to step back a little bit. And she's not going to voluntarily step back on her own. I'm going to have to reposition her. So she may not be a most senior member of the board, maybe a more junior member for this particular phase in my life. And we never know how and why we will need people in the future.
Right.
Or how and why we will serve people in the future. And so the idea of cutting them off does not necessarily, it's not the wisest thing to do.
Yeah.
But if we reposition ourselves, and repositioning, I always say to people, lead with love. Lead with your conversations, your interactions, your transactions, lead with love. Even when people are not acting within their God self, right? So that's their higher self, their good, designed, perfect self.
Right.
Lead with love. And so in repositioning this particular friend, I could call her and just say, we've been friends for a really long time, and I really appreciate you. And always lead with like at least 2 or 3 positive things. In social work, we call it 2 licks and 1 kick.
Okay.
Right? So you want to lead with 2 positive things. I really appreciate you. Our friendship has just been really phenomenal all these years. You've always been there for me, right? However, right now, I'm really going through a phase where I'm kind of feeling a little confused. And I really want to kind of go inward and really figure out where I am and what I need to do. And so that might mean that we don't get to talk every day like we used to, but just until I can kind of figure out where I want to be and where I want to go. Most people who care about you can hear that. They can really hear that. And even if they can't, that's really not your problem. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if you lead with love, you preserve the core of the relationship, and you can come back at a later date and say, you know what? I so appreciate the fact that you were willing to give me space. I hope that if you ever need it, you can let me know and know that I'll be okay with it. Because I get it.
Yeah.
And if the friend actually takes issue with it, know that friend has come to the end of their road with you. Because where you need to go, they can't go now. They're not able to. And that's okay. And even if you have a conversation with them and they're like all nasty with you, like, some people just don't like being left. And they'll especially if they have their own childhood issues around being left.
The abandonment issues.
They'll react to it very harshly. You can still lead with love and say, you know what, seems like you're taking this in a different way than I intended. I want you to know that I love you. This has nothing to do with you. I'm going through something right now. And I know you don't understand, but that's okay. I still love you.
Yeah.
And if you ever change your mind and you do want to engage, shoot me a text. I'll come hang out with you or meet up with you or whatever, And so you redefine the relationship at that point.
Yeah.
And I think it's good and healthy for us to understand that in my country of origin, I'm from West Africa, from Liberia, and we have a saying that says no condition is permanent. No condition, good or bad, is permanent. And if you understand that, first of all, you'll try to really make a commitment to understanding yourself and holding on and valuing yourself, because you can never leave yourself. Yeah. And then you don't become overly attached to what you have and what's going on around you, your job, your boyfriend, your spouse, your children. All of those things can go. They can really go in an instant. We've seen entire families die from COVID. Like, we've seen people through the financial crises lose billions of dollars just like that. Mm-hmm. We've seen people living today, accident, gone tomorrow. Right? If you attach yourself to your core self to these things and to people, how do you survive those losses, right? And so if you understand that people come into your life for a time, for a season, you love on them, you love on each other, you learn whatever lessons you're supposed to learn from that person, but when it's time for them to go, you let them go with love and trust that God and the universe will bring into your life where there's a void, because nature abhors a vacuum. Mm-hmm. They will bring into you what you need for this next phase. Right. And so when you hold on to relationships, especially romantic relationships, friendships that are no longer helpful, they're toxic, you actually are stopping your dreams from coming true. Mm-hmm. Because the space is occupied. I always tell people, like, once you have a relationship with someone in a relationship is unhealthy and you've tried everything to try to make it work and you know it's not workable and you continue to hold on to it, you're delaying your joy. There's someone right in your midst that's actually waiting to come and meet you, but they will never bring forth themselves with someone already attached to you. Why should they? Mm-hmm. So
I love that. Yeah. Are you guys mind blown? Her sweet daughter's over here like, yes, Mom, that's right. That's my mom. Like, how blessed are you to just like have a mother who's a therapist? Like, that's amazing. I love that. And I do love the lead with love.
Lead with love.
I like try, but I think, I'm I'm a very blunt person. I pretty much tell it how it is. And I do always like try to lead with love, but I think that that's important. I'm taking notes, y'all. I wrote that down because that's something that you need to like stop and think about how you're going to communicate everything that you're saying, right? For me, I'm very like reactionary, very reactive in the past. That's how I was. So that's hard for me to do.
Well,
so it's important.
Something that could be helpful. First of all, remember timing is everything. So perhaps in the moment that you're very upset is not the best moment to talk. Sometimes leading with love is silence. Being silent. Choosing to be quiet in that moment and not say anything so that you can go and compose yourself and come back when you are able to be kinder. Yeah. The other thing is to always be observing your intention. There are times when I even want to whoop someone's ass because they did some crap that I just don't like. You know, like I really feel offended by what was done, especially if it was done to my child or my mother. You know, those relationships, you tend to be like hyper vigilant.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's innocent though. Like someone could bump into her at the roller skating ring and hurt her even, but by accident. Right. But my natural instinct is like, Mama bear, my child. Yeah. You know, and I have to kind of pause and be like, that. First of all, that's someone else's kid. Even if they're bigger, it's still someone's child. Right. They did not look at her and like, yo, I'm gonna hurt her. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I have to pull myself back, and once I calm myself down and think about how do I want to respond, you know, and it could just be like, whoa, you could have really hurt her really badly. And the person usually like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's totally okay, but just be careful. There's lots of little kids here. And so in that situation, although I'm upset, I'm still leading with love. Yeah. And sometimes leading with love can be prolonged silence. There are times when you just need to get yourself together, and it could take a year with certain people because the things that they've done to you are so egregious in your body. You know, you feel so hurt. And that's okay. I think giving yourself grace to go through your own process is really important. Because if you don't give yourself grace, you're not going to be able to give other people grace. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do when we're leading with love. Is to say, you know what, I know you weren't functioning at your best, but that was really messed up, but it's okay. Yeah. You know? I don't think you can be, you know, more humane than that. You know, to understand someone's mistake and to overlook a hurt and to give that person grace to be like, you know, I still think you're a good human being. You know, I always tell my daughter, you know, there's a difference between a person and the person's behavior. You can love someone and not like their behavior. And when you can kind of just tell that difference, right? Like I love her to death, but there are certain things she does that I just don't like. And vice versa. She loves me, but there are things that I do that she doesn't like. And I tell her it's totally okay. You don't have to like everything about me. You know what I mean? And we need to make space for that in our friendships and relationships, you know?
I love that. And I think one thing you told me when we had that conversation a while ago was, honestly, reposition, have that open conversation that things may change, which we should definitely talk about. I think it's important to actually communicate how you're feeling. But you ended up telling me, like, and most likely it's going to die off anyway on its own. You know, God and the universe are just going to slowly. Yeah, absolutely.
The thing about it is that we make really mountains out of molehills, especially in our heads. Like everything just always seems so over the top. Like I'm a Cancer, right? Yeah. So I'm like,
oh yeah, honey, that water sign.
Yeah, I'm feeling like, oh, it's all rainbows and butterflies. Like, oh my God, we're coming to the end of the world. Like, yeah. I'm just like on the extremes, right? Yeah. And you got to talk yourself down, but sometimes stuff just really does end. You know what I mean? And you have to be okay with that. You really have to be okay with that. And in terms of communicating, sometimes you have to understand that the universe is waiting for you to just take a step in obedience. God rewards you for your obedience. So when he gives you signs that something is not working and that's not where you need to be, he's not necessarily looking for you to go and fix it. He just wants a sign that you heard and you're prepared to act. And so that act of obedience could be writing that person a letter, you know, explaining how you're feeling, not blaming, but explaining how you're feeling and what actions you would like to take. And depending on the nature of the relationship and what you think the consequences may be for them receiving it, you could decide to send or not send. But the act of you writing the letter is your action that you're taking to communicate to the world, to God and universe, that I'm ready for things to be different.
Yeah.
Right? It could also just be, it's just kind of hard. Like, I had a client who had a real tumultuous relationship with her mother. And she felt like the mother had betrayed her numerous times, not been there for her, and she wanted to write her mother now as an adult and said, I don't need you, you were a terrible mom, and this, that. One of the things that I encouraged her to do was to write it out and be honest about how she felt, because part of the work is to have your feelings validated. For someone to say, you know what, this is real, what they did to you was really messed up. Your feelings were hurt. That's legit. Like, anybody who went through that kind of thing would probably feel that kind of hurt. But then the work is, so what do you want to do about it? Do you no longer want this relationship with mom? Or do you want it? And of course, she's like, I want a relationship with mom, but I want her to apologize. I'm like, well, you have no control over how the other person responds. Right? She could get the letter and say, oh, this girl's nuts, and put it in the trash. And how would you feel about that? She was like, that'd be very hurtful. I'm like, okay, so in that case, we're doing more damage. Whereas if we wrote the letter and maybe did a gestalt treatment, which is when you sit down and you have an imaginary conversation with the person, you envision them before you, and you say to them with love the things that they've done to you, and that you forgive them, and what you learned from the experience.
Yeah.
And you release them in that conversation. You literally tell them, I release you. You could have a cathartic experience and be able to move on. Have a relationship with mom, but redefined with new boundaries, because you're not the kid anymore. Right? You can tell her, look, I want to have a relationship with you, but this is the way that it would best work for me. Is that okay with you? And then you guys can negotiate from both sides what would be most comfortable.
Yeah.
And she was able to go through that process. It took a little bit for her to kind of wrap her head around the idea of even negotiating with her mother, because that mother-child dynamic is, the power differential when you're a child is there, but as an adult, I'm like, you have that right now.
Even playing ground.
And so the communication piece is very important, but remember, the communication piece is really largely for you. You have no control over how the other person responds, and so you need to go into it understanding that, and not expecting the person to say, oh, Christine, I'm so sorry. They may not feel sorry, but one thing they will have is knowledge of how you feel.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I love that you bring up the control piece to it, because that's another thing I used to struggle with. Like, I used to hold on to relationships and people and things and control over situations. And once I let that guard down and understood that, like, I have control over nobody and nothing but myself and my actions and my choices. This conversation that I had with that friend, I had this conversation like 4 times in our life and nothing changed. I expected it to change. I got the apology. And then for the first time, I was like, you know what? I am better than that. I deserve more. And at the end of the day, I have no control over if she changes her actions, if she becomes a better friend to me or not. And I think there's also that aspect of like surrendering and like letting go. Like, yes, friendship breakups suck. Yeah. All breakups suck, but like friendship breakups are really tough. Yeah. And I think that you have to be in that mind space of being able to surrender and let go. And like you said earlier, God and the universe, they are always scheming for you. And they're going to bring someone in who's going to take that place and do it even better, and serve you.
Absolutely.
I think that's a huge piece.
Absolutely. Okay, so there are a couple of things. If we think about just the way the universe or the universe works, right? If you think about plants and how they kind of blossom without any effort from anyone. Like, you just leave them alone, they'll grow on their own and stuff. We're no different, right? And we prod and poke a lot at ourselves, at other people. I think it's really important to understand that everyone's doing the best they can with what they have. Some people have more than others in terms of emotional intelligence, in terms of IQ, in terms of adaptability quotient. Like, we're all resiliency. We're working with a lot of different things. We also come from different cultural backgrounds, different mindsets. All of those things play into how people behave towards your childhood traumas, post-childhood traumas, And so you may not be aware of all that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And setting an expectation that they'll respond in a mature or responsible way. It's almost like a setup for failure for the person. And one of the things that I recently encountered in a relationship was, I thought about what must it feel like to be on the receiving end of that judgment? So you're saying that in your relationship with your friend, you communicated her multiple times that you didn't like the behavior. And, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking about that because I had a situation like that. And I'm like, how many times have I told this man he's failed me?
Yeah.
In different forms, right?
Yeah.
You let me down. You weren't there for me. You didn't tell me the truth. You don't treat me well. Over a number of years. And I'm like, gosh, he probably feels terrible about himself when he's around me because it's like I'm a constant reminder of everything that you're not doing right in this particular relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so how do I expect the relationship to get better if I'm constantly like pointing the finger and shaking it like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
You suck.
She had actually said that to me. She said she felt like she was walking on eggshells sometimes.
Yeah.
And I totally understood. Because I thought of that. I was like, cringe.
And a lot of people will say that. You know, it's like, I can't talk to you, I can't be free with you. And so I think when you hear those kind of phrases, it's a good time for us to reflect on what role we're playing in the demise of the relationship. Because a lot of times we don't do that. And I was not able to do that either at that point because I was just so hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I was so hurt. And I just couldn't see it. But then when I thought about it, I was just like, you know, I tried to, at the end of the relationship, go into a position of reflection and learning where I was like, okay, what role did I play? You know, because I don't want to repeat these things. I need to figure this out because we're not redoing this.
Yeah.
You know? And one of the things that I realized was that more often than I care to, being very discouraging as opposed to being encouraging about the relationship. And even if let's say you encourage 1,000 times, which I probably did, and I didn't get the result, it was not okay for me to switch to become discouraging. What was okay for me to say would have been to exit the relationship.
Right. Because that's all you have control over.
Exactly. And to say, you know, like, let people can love you however they want to, because that's them. Where you have control is to say, I know you say you love me, but I don't recognize that kind of love, and it's not going to work for me.
Yes, you get to choose.
You can choose how you want to be loved.
That's our girl Oprah.
Yes,
I know,
absolutely.
you know.
Choose how you want to be loved. And I think that when you lack that knowledge, which I did at that time, you lose a level of self-power. It's like you give it to the other person. And once I figured that piece out, I'm like, because it was one of the situations where you're like, I love you so much, I love you so much. I'm like, this feels terrible. I don't know what kind of love this is. And I'd like psychoanalyze his childhood and all this kind of stuff to figure out what's wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
it couldn't be me.
Yeah. I'm like, I would hate to be with me like behaving like that. You know, I wouldn't want to be with me either. And so that also helped me kind of like come to a place of forgiveness and release, because I'm like, oh, I probably wasn't the best thing that, you know, since white bread, like I thought I was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important for us to surrender to the ease and the universal flow of our lives. There's a natural flow. And when you are not in flow, you're going to feel a lot of discomfort. When you're not in flow, career-wise, relationship-wise, friendship-wise, just energy-wise, when your home is out of flow, you're going to feel very uncomfortable, because you're designed to be in flow.
Yes.
And your joy is the greatest indicator as to whether you're in flow or not. So whatever situations you find yourself very unhappy in, or even a little bit unhappy, take note. It's like stagnant water, stagnant energy. And this even speaks to your wallet very greatly. Yeah, your wallet, cash, money is an energy. It needs to flow. When you hoard it, it becomes stagnant, and it's going to refuse to grow.
Yep. Scarcity versus abundance, baby.
Yeah. So love, friendship, money, all this stuff, it's all energy. It's all the same thing, and the same principles apply.
Yeah.
Right? If you surrender to the power that controls and governs our world, our universe, and you start to study that and really understand you don't control nada. What a relief to know that I don't have to control all that stuff.
It is.
I just have to figure out who I am. And I mean, on a spiritual level, understand who I am. Enjoy being me. Be more of me. take up some space, play with my interests, like go out there in the world and figure out what I'm into, what do I like.
Yeah, I love that. So there's so many like parts where I feel like I started my personal development and growth and spiritual awakening journey, but ultimately I think I've nailed it down to like the past 6 months. Like it was like January really. And since then I have lost a few friends. And at first I was actually a little hard on myself. Like part of me was like, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm listening to God in the universe. I'm aligned. I know this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. But sometimes, you know, that doubt would come in and I'd be like, is something like so wrong with me? And I would take it really, really hard and a little bit personally. So what's your advice to somebody who's feeling that way when they find themselves growing but losing people that they never thought they'd lose?
So first of all, recognize that an essential part of growth is loss. You cannot grow in the same condition that you were suffering in. Mm-hmm. Right? You cannot grow. A flower can't grow in a toxic body of earth. It's got to be moved. It's got to be transplanted to something new and different. And so the losses it's just natural. There's no other way, right?
Right.
Understanding that should help you not to take it personal. Mm-hmm. I've seen, and even myself, like I've gone through a divorce. I've lost a child. I've seen people run away from me because they couldn't take like my grief. I'm talking about losing friends. You'll lose friends quickly if you enter into those kinds of depressed modes and you don't look and behave the way you used to. I think that the truth of the matter is, you know, not everybody is meant to stick around the entire journey. And some people come into your life for a season for real, like, and you guys bond over certain things. Like you might bond over like partying or bond over a job. Like you guys were working together, you were eating together, you were carpooling together, and the friendship was great for that time, like that 3 or 4 year time.
Right.
And then you get another job and possibly get promoted. That friend may not understand its new position and your new perspective because you're seeing things in a company that are different from what you guys were looking at before. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's nothing personal. They just don't get because they don't have access to information you now have.
Right.
Same thing with like your spiritual growth and your development. There's certain people, like this conversation we're having, it's going to sound like gibberish to them.
Right.
Because they're just not ready.
Yeah.
However, for those who are ready, this is going to sound like, no.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. Yeah.
It just clicks for me, you know? And I think that this whole idea of abundance is recognizing and being grateful for what is. What is not. And so in the moments where you're feeling, gosh, I'm losing, get out that journal and write what you're gaining, what you have. There's something called reality testing, where you write out the facts. So for example, let's say you lose a relationship. Okay, so yes, I lost a relationship, but here are the facts. I felt unsupported in that relationship. Now I'm actually free and I can possibly attract someone who can be very supportive to me. And something is really important for you to understand is your brain is not necessarily designed to keep you happy. And a lot of people don't know about this. Your brain is designed for survival. So if your brain's job is to help you survive, your brain is going to sometimes stall you from progressing because it finds comfort in familiarity. It's like, yeah, you could go and meet the love of your life, but shoot, we're not sure. The national statistics say like there's 3 women for every 1 man. You better stay here and something's better than nothing. And these are the things that people deal with. But none of that is true because all women are not marriageable or partnerable, if that's even a word. A lot of them don't even want that. So if you start accounting for all those variations, there's a great possibility that you could find the love of your life or whatever the case may be. So I think doing that kind of reality testing is really helpful where you really look at, yes, you're losing certain things, but what do you stand to gain?
Yeah.
You could go out and meet a powerful, amazing group of women and develop new friendships based on shared interests if you would sign up for a law of attraction course or a group on financial wellness, you know, because those groups and classes already have people with shared interests.
Yeah.
Or if you're into sports, you know, or exercising, whatever. None of us is unlovable. We're just not lovable to everybody.
Yeah.
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a matter of just really checking yourself and also not being a lazy thinker. Your brain will wander into all sorts of nonsense if you allow it. Mm-hmm. You know, And I don't know why God did this, but we're designed to lean towards the negative. That's why if you look at the news headlines, it's like all these like really horrible things lead the news, and maybe they'll throw one or two nice little positive stories in at the end. Because your brain, for whatever reason, likes that negativity. And so you really have to be a conscious person in terms of what am I thinking right now? Yeah. Your thoughts become things, right? Your thoughts become things. That's cognitive behavioral theory. It's also law of attraction, right? And in the Bible, it says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So I'm giving you 3 different disciplines that are telling you the same thing. What you think is super important, so you have to guard your thoughts. Like, don't allow your brain to just wander aimlessly from one negative thought to another. Like, be really aware. When you're not feeling good, what am I thinking? And correct it. There's an exercise I do with my client. I call it pause and play. And basically what it is, a way of capturing negative self-talk. So if you find your brain kind of wandering off like, oh, I'm fat, I'm not attractive, no one wants to be friends with me, I'm not very interesting, just all these, and your brain will look for like thoughts. So once you start with one negative thought, it'll find another one, hook onto it, another, and another, and another. Before you know it, you're in like this really funky downward spiral, right? And so when you catch it early on, you want to really take your this is your forefinger, right? And put it on your temple. Okay. And just gently press to pause and correct that thought. So if the thought was, I'm fat, it's like, no, I'm not fat. I'm pretty succulent and juicy. I just need to work on the fat. Right? Yeah. And so the first thought was, I'm fat. So I'm going to press pause on the left side of my temple with that. And then kind of be conscious, like, Dee, that wasn't really nice what you said to yourself. And then, so that's the new thought. Now we're going to press play. We're going to repeat that thought like 3 times, right? And give yourself that reprogramming. I love that. Right? And you have control over that. Yeah. So press play, run that positive thought. Your mood will change like almost instantly. And you go by your business.
That's super powerful though. And I think with romantic relationships too, like you tend to romanticize what the relationship was. And then when you stop and you like, I have done this before too, like where I'll stop and I just journal like all of my feelings and the times I felt so uncomfortable and not valued and not heard by this person. I'm like, oh yeah, why am I like heartbroken about this? It kind of like reminds you of why you're making the decision that you ended up making for yourself.
Remember I told you your brain is not really designed to keep you happy. Yeah. It's designed to keep you safe. And so your brain will resist change. It's like, let's just stay here. And then when you start taking these steps, that's why every time you try to do something new, your brain's like, I don't know, you might fail. Yeah. And your brain is such a whack friend because as soon as you do it and it works, it's like, well, I knew you could do it. Yeah. Like, no, keep quiet. You did not have such faith. Yeah. So if you understand that this is how your brain works, it's easier for you to override that tape. It's like, I'm going to make this change. Yeah, you're right. I could be wrong, but I won't know unless I try it. And I'm going to try it regardless of what you say. So, Christina, just stop. Yeah. We're going forward. And one of the cool things about reality testing, you have tons of experience of times when you've made the right decision and it worked out great. You might have a few, like a handful of times where you actually followed your own instinct, did what you thought you needed to do, and it didn't work out. Very few. You really are a genius at your own line. That's why you need to be CEO of Christina Inc.
Don't worry. Yeah. We're here.
That's right. But everybody needs to do that.
So what advice would you give to somebody who is going through that friendship breakup?
Right now, I would say to the person, first, accept the fact that no condition is permanent. This may or may not be the end for this friendship. You have no control over that, so you need to accept that. And then take your time and figure out how you want to communicate what you're feeling. And think about the best case scenario and how the person could respond if you actually told them. Also think about the worst case scenario and then predetermine how you're going to handle both of those things. How can you handle it in a way that sits well with you and that's loving and kind? And loving and being loving doesn't mean making yourself a doormat to anyone, right? So being loving is speaking about your intention. Mm-hmm. I can remove myself from your life with the intention of maintaining your dignity and mine. I can remove myself from your life with the intention of maintaining my integrity, with the intention of preserving myself. Those are not negative emotions. Those are all positive things. And by me leading with that, I'm going to bring more of that into my own life. And I'm also going to tell you, I wish you well. I do love you. And perhaps this is the end of our journey. Perhaps it's not. I'm open. So you act however you want to. This is where my mind is, right? And so it's all about your intention. Yeah. It's always all about your intention. That's the reason why when someone says to you, that dress, you should want to wear that. It feels very different from someone saying to you, no, Christina, that dress is nice, but the other brown one, it really shows your shape. You look so good in that brown dress. The intention behind the second statement is different from the first, and you can feel it.
Definitely.
Right?
One's ugly.
Yeah, one was not nice.
Nah,
there wasn't a desire to make you better.
Yeah.
The second was. And so when you're talking to people, even when you're saying things that are difficult for them to hear, they can sense your intention.
Yeah.
And I think that we all need to understand that, because again, everything's energy. And although we only hear words, we're constantly collecting data from an energy perspective. I think if you go into the situations like, with those things, at the very minimum, you'll come out feeling much better and ready to open up a new valve of flow in your life in regards to friendship. All of these things are here for us to receive them. It's right around you. We're the ones that block it off, right? We block it off with our negative thoughts. We block it off with our limiting beliefs and all those things, right? So I think that just holding on to those things will serve you well in these transitions. And remember, no condition is permanent, so don't even go into them with that expectation. And then fill yourself up with lots of good stuff, like in the days afterwards, so that you're not like fixating on, well, after I told her, she didn't call me, she didn't text me. Spend time building yourself up. Listen to your positive affirmations. Listen to the podcasts that you feel are healthy and supportive, like this one. Do your journaling about the fact that, it really feels sucky to possibly lose this friend. She or he meant a lot to me, but I do understand that no condition is permanent. And so I'm okay to release her and let her go. I know I'm opening up a new valve. Like, do your own little rant. Baby yourself. People underestimate how much it hurts to lose a friend.
Yeah.
But there's a level of grief that's associated with that loss. So, take those warm baths, get that lavender oil out, put it on a pillow, turn in early, eat a really good meal, like get a glass of wine. Just really, really nice and gentle with yourself for the couple of days thereafter. Your mood will pick up so fast, you'll be like, that was quick. And that's also how you move through a breakup.
I love that. Find validation from within is the biggest thing. That's one thing I had to learn. I was always trying to get validation from other people, from significant others to friends. And then when I started spending time by myself, I was like, I don't need it from them. I need it from me.
Yeah. Because when they give it to you, it only holds for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when they're not there, even if they're just busy, who's going to do it?
And then you feel like crap about yourself when you're by yourself because you never learned how to do it for yourself.
We must affirm our own worth. We must affirm ourselves. This is where this concept of being your own best friend really comes from. You really do need to be your own best friend. And then just also remember, it's a real burden to have to affirm someone all the time. And that's what we're doing to our friends and partners. We're saying, pick me up. But it's like, I don't want to pick you up. I'm trying to pick myself up today.
Right. I'm exhausted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is, and this is my favorite part of my learning, when I realized I had to do this work for myself, I was so happy to not have to do it for other people. And I felt comfortable saying, well, no, I'm not going to be able to do that for you. You need to find a way to make yourself feel good. And I didn't feel guilty. I used to be such a people pleaser. Oh my goodness, it drives me crazy. I used to be like, doing things that I didn't want to do because I didn't want people to feel bad, and it was just exhausting. I was tired all the time, putting a lot of my own projects to the side and things like that, and it really irritated me because I noticed that all the people who I was working for were doing the things, they were progressing in life in the areas that they wanted to progress in, because I was doing their grunt work.
Yeah, and they weren't looking out for you in that way.
Well, and you can't blame them. My mom always says if you don't lay down, nobody will step on you.
Yeah.
Right? And so I had to get really comfortable, like learn how to say no. And it sounds so silly. I'm like, how can you not know how to say no? But I Googled it. A lot of people don't know how to say no. And there are lots of nice ways to say no. So I actually Googled a whole list of, I think it's 60 ways to say no.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so that you don't feel bad or whatever. And so that's why I started. And I got to a place where I was just like, they're like, can you do this? I'm like, no. And very few people are bold enough to be like, why? I mean, and if you're that bold, I'm like, oh, you want to infringe on my rights. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I said no. But it took me probably about 5 years to get here, because I was raised in an environment where the whole was greater than the individual in our community, and you went out of your way for people as a demonstration of love, and when you did not, you were reprimanded for being selfish. And so I had almost 35 plus years of programming that I was working against there. No, I don't have to do your work instead of mine. So now, I'm very comfortable telling people no. But I realized, and the intention behind me telling you no is to free you up so that you never have to tell me yes if you don't mean it. And so I don't feel bad, because I'm just like, I would hate for you to commit to doing something for me if you didn't want to, because the energy will be all messed up, right? So I'm like, well, I hope you feel free to tell me no. If you can't make it, I totally understand. And I really do. Yeah. Because I know that sometimes I just don't want to. Yeah. And the reason is just, I don't want to. Right. And it's totally okay. Yeah. And again, if you're clear on your intention, you won't feel bad. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't want to say no, is because they don't want to feel bad. Yeah.
Well, you're out of the hot seat. That's all the questions that I have for you. Well, that's actually a lie. I do have my little quick fire round of questions, but before we do that, plug yourself. Tell us all about the things you have going on.
Okay, so you can find me, first of all, on Instagram at Coach Delarue.
And I'm going to put all of this in the description, so you guys go look for that.
Awesome. And my next big project is my book. I'm hoping to release the book before September, so fingers crossed everything goes well. We're in editing stages now.
Knocking on the wood.
Yes, and so on top of the book, coming out of that book, we're going to do a mastermind for women, and then we're going to also do something called Power Hour. And Power Hour is going to be like a 1 hour happy hour every Friday, where we get together a bunch of women who are trying to create amazing lives for themselves based on their core values. And so it starts off with a value assessment, but we drink tequila and we talk. Okay. Yes. And then I'm also going to do a series, but that's going to be more of a video series called Happy Hour, and it's just giving you 100 different ways to have fun as an adult, because we forget. We always look for things for our children to do, but what are some fun things to do that are healthy, don't cost a lot of money, don't involve alcohol, some people can't drink for different reasons. I'm hoping that through that process, because I'll send you stuff every week, and I want to get feedback from people every week, that I can take that 100 list and turn it into 1,000, because I'll ask people different ideas. So those are 3 big things that I have going on for this fiscal year. But I usually share all that stuff on Instagram, so that's the easiest and best way to get in touch with me.
Okay, so you guys go follow her. Once again, I will put everything in the description. Yay. Okay, so let's do our quick fire round of questions. Okay. These are just random questions that I ask every guest that I have on the show, so just give us the answer that comes straight to your mind first. Awesome. If you could give one piece of advice to my listeners who are on their journey to show up as bold and unbreakable, what would it be?
I would say start with a journey of self-discovery. Really figure out what your core values are, what's important to you, what's not, and figure out what you like and you don't like. Because you might remember what you like and didn't like 5 years ago, but you've changed. Figure that out, and then go be more of that, whatever that is.
Okay, love it. When you are feeling your absolute best, what are you doing? Who are you around? What does that look like for you?
When I'm at my absolute best, I'm teaching. I love teaching people, whether it's live or virtual. There's the energy that I have through that exchange is just so amazing. I also feel like I'm at my absolute best when I'm doing a good job of taking care of myself. When I'm eating right, I'm exercising, and I'm feeding my mind and my spirit, I show up as a better mother, a better friend, a better lover, a better everything. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Pineapple on pizza? ? No.
You've never even tried
it's a no.
It. How do you even know? You've never tried it.
Okay, enough said. When did your life change for the best, or are you still waiting? Was there a pivotal moment for you where everything changed?
It was painful, very painful. December 18th of 2019. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was the moment that I realized that I was so sad, and I didn't want to be sad anymore. I was just I'm over this. I'm done with it. I don't want to do this no more. And so, having made that decision, I now could seek solutions. But prior to, I was just wallowing in it.
Yeah. Okay. And lastly, what is one thing you're grateful for right now?
My chicken. My baby. I'm so grateful for Bella. Bella's been gone for a couple of weeks. She was with her dad. And I really missed her. I have not been away from her for more than I think the longest time was I was on a business trip for 10 days.
I was very mad at you.
Yeah, she was little. She was 4 years old, but that's the only time we've been apart, and she's 10. So this was my first time being by myself for 3 weeks.
That's a long time too.
Yes, and it was so weird the first couple of days because the house was so quiet, and I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do?
She changed the whole house.
Yeah, so I did some decorating. It was just perfect. You know? So it was like, although I didn't have any control over her leaving, I made the best of her being gone. And that's pretty much what we were talking about in terms of relationships, right?
Right. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate you telling us so much good knowledge and tips and tricks. So thank you for being here. We'll have to have you on again.
This is my joy. This is my purpose. This is what brings me peace. And
Yeah.
This is where I flow. You know, it feels effortless to me. I can't believe people pay me to do this, but
yes.
This is where I'm meant to be. It's my assignment, so I'm happy anytime call me.
I love that. Well, thank you. As always, you guys, please feel free to send any feedback. If you took some value from this episode today, shoot me a DM. Let me hear all the things. You can follow at Unbreakably Bold on Instagram. That will also be in the description. And as always, every rate, review, subscription helps so much. Thank you guys for your time. Talk to you later. Bye.